So for those of you who watched last week, we ran a poll just to kind of ask you, what is it that you want us to kind of talk about? Is there any kind of data you're looking for? Other kind of topics that really kind of interest you? And I think one of the kind of overwhelming, I don't know, topics in terms of sort of popularity from our kind of audience was sales, Andrew.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really, obviously, it's a hot topic right now. I think it becomes a hot topic moving forward if businesses are now kind of opening up again. So I think what we've done this week is really kind of chosen the right topic. I think it's very kind of timely, and it's different, right, to what sales looks like just 2 months ago. So I think we'll kind of delve into that a little bit more, and really kind of see what people are doing, how it's kind of impacting them, what's changed, what perhaps hasn't changed, and and what does the future of sales look like, right? What is
Exactly.
what is that thing that we call kind of modern sales processes? So I think it's going to be exciting. So Andrew, I've got some data that we've pulled together.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see if we can start looking at that.
Yeah, actually, I mean, while just it's pulling that up, obviously, for those of you that are watching the show for the first time, thank you. Where have you been, more importantly, for the last couple of shows? But we like to follow a kind of similar theme or format. I said themat then, which is pretty cool. I think I've come up with a new word. So that's a combination of theme and format. We like to follow a certain themat. And what we like to do is kind of pull up stats out there which kind of globally and regionally what's happening. The past couple of weeks we've looked at HubSpot. This week we're going to kind of dive into some McKinsey data, but also we like to kind of localize that as well with our own understanding. So yeah, I was filling time there, Amit. Oh yeah, there we go. Cool.
Well, you were so engaging, mate. I forgot to press share screen. So
press share screen.
All right. So this is some data that we've touched on before.
McKinsey.
But again,
I said McKinsey on purpose because I knew Amit would be catching on that.
Yeah, it was already on my list. So we used HubSpot data last week. HubSpot have been fabulous because they really kind of have been sharing what's going on across their sort of customer base. So we've had data from around 70,000 companies that they've been sharing, and it gets updated every week.
Yeah.
McKinsey, this is slightly older, but I still felt it was kind of relevant. And I know some of this data is what you found, Andrew. So I feel as if, we should touch on this, but I feel as if we should fast forward this in terms of, what we're kind of seeing locally as well.
Yeah.
And not so much locally, but what we're seeing today. And this is really, data, which I think is quite interesting, but again, just for more context, when we're focusing on kind of company spend in terms of whether it's for lead generation or whether it's for marketing, this data, which does go back to April the 7th, which is when it was published, has shown straight away that within the first, say, 3 or 4 weeks of COVID sort of hitting us and affecting us, budgets were reduced, right? But I feel as if, and I think we saw this with some of HubSpot's data last week, the impact by potentially larger organizations was slower. They kind of almost felt as if they wanted to ride this out. But didn't really, they kind of stepped back, perhaps didn't change their budgets, straight away or immediately. But what they did do is the changes that they perhaps made were perhaps, more significant, but done, at a later stage. So this data here essentially just shows us that a month and a half back, what we were looking at is, still significant. 50% of companies at that time had kind of stopped spending money and were looking to stop spending money for the future 2 weeks. But there were still a lot of companies that hadn't kind of done much. I think this chart's really interesting. Andrew, do you want to kind of talk us through this?
Yeah, I think just before we jump into this, I think the first model really, the first chart really was almost that kind of, it does okay, marketing has been cut and investment has been cut. Does that affect my sales? There's obviously still a lot of companies, organizations, individuals that really don't connect the dots from marketing to sales, and some organizations don't even have that marketing available to themselves. So I think these stats that we've kind of been brought up, we've seen locally, and we've obviously seen through our own polls as well. But I think obviously to dive into the sales side of things, the people have had to change. And I think what's interesting here is obviously this is, what has your company do to adjust that sales model during COVID-19? And I think the interesting point here is that, we can go through and take some of the individual data out, but if we look at all of the data, effectively what we're seeing is 93% of companies have changed their model, right? So that's huge, right? And obviously we've got, on the far left-hand side here, it's all of the sales transition to video conferencing and phone. Middle is kind of partial, so a bit of video conferencing and obviously, some remote. And then, but I think what's important is 93% have changed, including ourselves, right? It's a massive shift from your regular kind of sales, day-to-day activity, or month-on-month, year-on-year, to where we find ourselves now.
Yeah, I agree, and I think again, this is data that's even perhaps a month older than what we are, where we are today. So so it'd be really interesting, I think, to see really what the impact of that is today and sort of compare that data. I think, Andrew, before we start, I think it'd be really good to there's a couple of things, guys. So how we try to do the show is that we want to make it interactive. So I've already seen some kind of messages coming in. And amazing, yeah. So Andrew, most of the messages that are coming in are focused around your beard. I just wanted to let you know that. So and I think you've definitely got a fan in Thomas Williams who does seem to comment every week on your beard, which is fantastic. And Thomas, we love you, so keep coming and keep sending that through. But that's ammunition for later. But what we do try and do, keep your comments coming in, keep any questions coming in. That really kind of adds to the show. And what we also try to do is kind of collect our own data, right? So if we kind of understand the mindset of, our audience, then, it becomes easier for us to really kind of share content and information that's relevant. So I think one of the things that I want to kind of get into is really based on lead generation. So, we were quite vocal about, this show being about sales today. So I'm guessing that we've got a significant amount of sort of salespeople or sales professionals or people who are kind of involved in selling within their companies. So it'd be really kind of good to understand, where your leads are kind of coming from right now. So guys, if you can we'll keep this running for about 10 or 15 seconds, but if you can kind of share as much data or information as you can there, that'd be great. Brilliant.
Yeah, we can see kind of some of those numbers coming in. Obviously, I think this kind of falls in line with what we've been doing as well. So I think this is across the board, and this is also feedback that we've got from existing clients and new clients that are coming on board as well. Because the first question we ask them is how you generate leads.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really interesting. So if we're looking at the two kind of red, let me share the results. That will help.
I was going to say that would help, yeah.
But if we look at the kind of standout answers here, people are talking about existing networks and referrals that are coming through there, and old clients, and I think that's really interesting. Yeah, actually, and in terms of the rest of the answers, quite a nice spread. I think that kind of tells us a lot. Thank you, guys. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously we'd kind of look to similar results. Essentially, anywhere that it's non-paid, I guess. So obviously, if we've already established the budgets are being reduced, where can we reach out and kind of generate those leads? So I mean, but that's still interesting that obviously people are tapping into that.
Yeah, definitely. I think I think that's really interesting. I think we're all talking about selling remotely now, and obviously we don't need to go into too much information about Zoom and things like that. I'm sure firstly everyone's on Zoom right now, but
I was going to say we're actually coming to you via Zoom, so you'd hope you know what it is.
Yeah, but I think it'd be good to kind of almost see the effectiveness. And again, McKinsey shared some data regarding that, and I'll just share my screen again. Because it'd be good to understand what we're kind of seeing elsewhere. So here we're looking about the effectiveness of how kind of digital sales are coming into play, right? So everything we're doing now, predominantly is very kind of digital focused, whether that's through video conferencing, whether it's even just, phone calls or whatever kind of channel you're using for that. But I think it'd be good to know, and well, good to kind of get your feedback on this, Andrew. So in terms of, how effective this new kind of sales model is, I mean, this data seems pretty overwhelming, right? In terms of the direction that it's heading in. Bearing in mind, this is, again, still only 4 weeks of data, or perhaps even less than that, right? If we're going back to April the 7th.
Yeah. I mean, I think the first of all, to understand, that shift towards a digital sales environment, I think that obviously a lot of people are used to either having face-to-face meetings or going out, shaking hands, and communicating with clients on a very personal basis. They're not used to this online environment. Some individuals are, but a lot of Salesforce and business development is done face to face. So I think from a digital sales perspective, it's first and foremost understanding what that presents. So obviously, yes, it's the likes of Zoom and Teams and all of the BlueJeans and Google Meet and some of these things that allow you to communicate directly on here. But it's also the WhatsApps of the world, the email, all of that kind of digital space. So I think from an effectiveness perspective, there's a couple of things that I've seen the impact. One is the ability or the availability of time. So in the physical world, when you have to go to meet someone or you have to obviously coordinate, a lot of that time is taken up, that's selling time. So you're driving to a location or you're trying to find parking, or there's time that's taking away from that process. So from our team's perspective, we've seen an increase in the number of calls booked. So the actual kind of number of meetings that are kind of booked online. And I'd say there's been a trend very early on. There was almost a comfort level, which was, I'd say, uncomfortable, where people wouldn't stay online for very long. So you perhaps book a 30-minute meeting or a 15-minute meeting. Now you're seeing people want to spend longer than the hour on there because their comfort level has started to increase as well. So I think that as salespeople have got used to this environment, also customers have as well, and prospects. So they feel more comfortable.
I mean, I won't reload that data again, but there was a significant number of people on there who said that it hadn't really helped them much, right? In some cases, 30 to 40% of people who are saying that actually, it hasn't really impacted them or hasn't really, helped them in any way.
Improve effectiveness.
Who are these people? I mean, where do you kind of see that, those kind of respondents coming from? What kind of backgrounds? What kind of industries?
Yeah, I think the challenge with this is that a lot of almost marketing is pretty fun and pretty cool in the corporate world, whereas sales can some point be left behind. And by that I mean that the marketing space is full of automation and cool tools, and it's exciting, and but when it comes to actual sales, I think a lot of this has been almost left behind. So a lot of the traditional sales environment, let's say, the personality, speaking to people, reaching out to people, networks, these things don't always translate as effectively on the online space. And there may be people that are blissfully unaware of the online space, or just don't have the facility to incorporate. I mean, for many years, we've had, shared calendars, we've had the ability to book meetings. This is really something to consider, because a lot of organizations are not set up, even when it comes down to the basics like the CRM. Some individuals are not actually set out to have an ability to track. So I think if you look at a traditional, sales environment or boiler room where you come in the morning and the update of the day is, personal interaction, right? How was yesterday? How did it go today? What are you planning this week? That's completely lost. So people have had to, move into an environment that they may not be as comfortable. So I think that's probably where some of that's come from.
Yeah, and again, I think it'd be interesting to see how that's changed. Whether those same people kind of would respond in the same way today. I think one thing leading on from that, Andrew, then is people who are finding it sort of more comfortable, more productive, more beneficial, perhaps,
Yeah.
From kind of digital sales standpoint, I guess business owners want to know, what's the impact of that in terms of, how long it takes to close a deal, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to pull up another poll, guys. So again, appreciate your input here. But Andrew, while that's out there, how long has it taken, from your perspective? Has there been any kind of significant impact? Are you seeing deals close faster? Or in terms of the process, is the process perhaps more streamlined than it would be? What's your kind of take on this?
I'd say when you've got, if you're looking at a kind of mid-range business and you've got, direct involvement from an ownership perspective, even a large size business, the decision does seem to be faster. So, a lot of I think we spoke about this the other week about the meme going around, what's the most effective digital transformation, COVID, right? So a lot of these organizations have been tasked, or employees have been tasked to get going, right? Whatever that means, whatever get going means. That means, potentially as a business, which may be traditionally retail focused, pulling them online. It may be if you previously were generating all your business from trade shows, we need to generate our leads from somewhere else, whatever the case may be. So I'd say there is the speed to making decisions, but more importantly, the ability to have access to certain decision-making individuals has improved, because obviously a lot of the senior and top-tier individuals are travel. There's a lot of regional travel, there's a lot of global travel, and busy individuals. But I think this has also allowed the ability to meet with these individuals and kind of have discussions with them, because obviously they, like us at the moment, are deciding the future of our business. So you kind of want to be even more involved and understand things that perhaps before you were not before. But I think that the flip side of that is essentially organizations that are a bit nervous to kind of make some decisions, are still hanging back, still waiting. These are the ones that are like a longer burn, right? It'd be interesting to know the results actually.
Yeah. So I'm sharing the results now. So we've got actually 71% of people who are saying that it's taken longer than before to close deals. And I wonder, I think the question here is this because of COVID and people being much more sort of careful in terms of where they're spending budget, or is this a sales process question? And I think that's perhaps something that we want to kind of dig in a bit deeper in, because I think it's important to understand that, if sales processes potentially now, are perhaps more, I don't know, much smoother in terms of we're not having to kind of drive out to meetings, we're not having to jump on planes, the kinds of things that we kind of invest time in doing before, then, perhaps this is based on COVID as opposed to, the actual process, or perhaps people's processes just need to be much more kind of streamlined or modified based on where we are right now.
I mean, what we see obviously is we see quite a dramatic, difference in actual deal time anyway. So you may be, the larger the investment, obviously some of these deals can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months to actually come through. So, these kinds of deals, I imagine, would be potentially pushed, and that would increase the deal even longer. Whereas some of the smaller investments can be made a kind of quicker decision. It may be investing in new software, it might be investing in new tools or materials. I think, a lot of people, for example, setting up their home business made a pretty quick decision to get a home office in place. When we were looking at retail, furniture business was still pretty good for the first month, to where people were adjusting their home workspace. So just a quick thing, Amit, before we move on, Ritzka, we've seen your question and a couple of other questions. We will answer those at the end. I think we'll kind of pull those together and answer some of the questions. So if you do have any questions specific, that's fine, jump in and we can answer those at the end. But yeah, I think the speed of close, obviously, if you are used to closing a deal within 4 to 6 weeks and things are taking 12 to 18, weeks, this is a challenge because it completely, kind of shifts your mindset.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think just on that point, Andrew, we're talking about things from a kind of sales perspective, but what about from a customer perspective? So people who are actually buying from salespeople right now, what's your kind of thoughts on that? I mean, this process, how's it kind of impacted them? And obviously, we've got trade shows which are an absolute, no-go at the moment, and may sort of continue to be for the rest of the year. But taking that into account and other factors, I mean, from a customer side, what are your thoughts? I mean, are they kind of embracing the change?
We talk about this a lot, right? We talk about that you shouldn't have a business, centric approach. You need a customer centric approach. It's not really about your comfort level. It's about client comfort levels or customer comfort levels. I think that if you look at what's been preached a lot as far as the customer wants to spend time researching, the customer wants to understand you a bit better, wants to get to know you, understand your service offering, your product. Allow them to communicate when they want to be communicated with, as opposed to chasing after them. I think what this environment has done is it's almost put quite a lot of power back in the customer's hands, because they basically now it's not as easy potentially to speak to them. They may not be as available as far as kind of getting in their office and having a conversation with them. So they now I mean, I think it almost looks as though this is something that they'd want. And again, I only look at, for example, previously trying to organize a meeting. Now what happens is, for all of our team, we send a link. Listen, you choose when you want to speak to me and how long you want to speak to me too, right? Do you want a 15-minute, 30-minute, an hour? What do you want? It's entirely up to you. So it's a very customer-centric approach, and I think customers would embrace it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what we're talking about so far is very kind of B2B, but B2C, I guess, has even more significant impact, right? If you're a B2C customer right now, I mean, how desperate are you to get back into a retail store?
Yeah. It's I don't know. I mean, I think I'm probably at the end of the scale, not desperate at all. But there's definitely some people that want to run out there the moment that the shops start to open or the gyms start to open, or the ability to just go out and get back to some sense of normality, I guess. I mean, we saw that in the States when they opened Disney World and it was limited opening. There was queues out the door. When Carnival Cruises said, "Hey, listen, we're going to start taking bookings again," people immediately jumped on. So thankfully, I guess there's different people in the world, right?
Yeah, and I guess it depends on the sectors. But if you're looking at, again, just retail in general, I feel as if, I think the role of salespeople within that retail environment now, I think has changed, because the consumers and customers they're going to be dealing with today are probably going to be more empowered than ever, right?
Yeah.
So before they even go into the mall, they're going to absolutely research everything about a potential product they're going to buy. There's a good chance they probably know more than the salesperson. So I think salespeople in that respect are probably going to have to up their games, right? They're going to have to know much more than that customer that's coming in.
I mean,
just to show themselves as the the genuine sort of expert. Otherwise, I think again they face challenges, because why else wouldn't you just go on straight onto, say, Amazon and then make the purchase yourself, right?
Yeah, well, this has given customers time, right? Time to research, time to look at competitive set, time. So you now have the ability or luxury, perhaps, of time. Now, I know that we've spoken about people are working longer hours, and those are the stats that are coming out. But it does appear as though you do have more time in this work from home environment, just because I guess you're not caught up in certain things, or you're dragged into certain meetings or discussions that may be valuable or non-valuable, but you're still pulled away. So think of that from a consumer perspective as well. The same thing applies. I think a good test of this always is to just talk amongst your friends, and when I just see even us, hey, listen, where are you buying your meat from? Where are you getting your fruit and veg? You're not going out, and look, even trying new platforms. I tried Noon for the first time this last week, and massive positive experience. I've been a true Amazon believer, as it were, but tried out Noon and was massively impressed with their customer service and how they approached it. And ordinarily, I wouldn't have looked at that. I'd heard so many other people saying, "Oh, I tried this." So it does give you that chance to go and test it.
Cool. I'm going to just pop up the next bit of data again from McKinsey, and this And again, it just very much follows on from what we were talking about. And this is not so much from, you know, how valuable salespeople see, you know, digital sales or digital processes, but this is very much kind of data that comes from the customer's perspective. And I think this is really interesting because, again, you know, we're talking about April 7th, and even, you know, in those sort of, I'd say what, mid-March is when everyone really starts to feel the pinch on a global level.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, if you look at what, less than 3 weeks, I mean, I think it's really interesting, right? Like customers, you know, people who are on a kind of buying side are, you know, have doubled, you know, in terms of how important they kind of value that digital sales process and that digital sales interactions, you know, and I think that's really interesting. Any thoughts?
So it goes back to the customer and the consumer, right? Clearly, they're crying out for more digital interaction. They want to be able to communicate with you how and when they see fit, not kind of, you know, as opposed. I mean, I think the interesting thing about retail is also just the timing. I think that I've found myself sitting there at 1:30 in the morning buying things online, just because that's the first time I've practically been able to sit down and, you know, the thought of jumping in a car now and driving 30 minutes to a mall and getting things. First of all, we wouldn't be able to do that 1:30 in the morning anyway. But you know, doing that is no, I'd prefer this digital approach.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think there's a lot of kind of benefits. I think there's a lot of efficiencies, and I think, again, you know, people are well aware of these now. I'm gonna touch a little bit on the role of marketing from a sales perspective as well, Andrew. So I mean, again, you know, we're used to, or say traditional salespeople are used to, you know, trade shows, you know, maybe cold calling, whatever it is, right? Whatever that kind of looks like. But do you feel the role of marketing has become sort of more important for salespeople over the last couple of months, or do you feel as if it's still the same?
I think there's, I'd say there was, you know, if they were looking around the room, there's more of a reliance on them. I think they, you know, we see it a lot. There's kind of this age-old battle of sales and marketing, and, you know, marketing are not giving me the leads that I want, while sales are not actually, you know, handling the leads properly. There's this kind of back and forth, and I think if there was a time for bringing this closer together, this is the time. Because this is the time to analyze absolutely everything and understand where that marketing dollar is going, and ultimately where the conversion is happening to becoming a customer. So I'd say that possibly, you know, in the past where there was that kind of butting of heads, it needs to change, and I think we have seen some change. But it needs to move in that direction, I think.
Yeah, I think what's interesting actually is we've had obviously multiple conversations with clients and with, you know, just sort of friends and throughout our networks. But the biggest, I'd say, the guys who are moaning the most in terms of marketing budgets being cut so far are marketing people, right, rather than salespeople. So that kind of almost suggests that, you know, that market and sales alignment maybe perhaps isn't there, or perhaps wasn't there in the past. I mean, for me, I'd feel as if, you know, if I was a sales professional, if I was out there and my job was to sell, I would be the guy, you know, shouting the loudest if marketing budget was cut. You know, because for me, marketing should be doing that job, right, of delivering me leads, you know, building a sales funnel, and then, you know, it then becomes up to me to then go in and close those leads and close those deals. But I think it's interesting, and I think that's a good question perhaps to even throw out there to the audience as well. And this is a two-part question, and we'll look at all the data together, guys. But part one of this is, you know, pre-COVID, how important was it that your kind of sales and marketing teams were aligned? And, you know, I think it'll be interesting to kind of understand that. And and then
don't worry, guys. There's no names attached to this. There's no company, no names. So this is just you can be as honest as you want here.
Yeah, we'll just wait for a few more to come in. Some great answers coming in. Yeah, and I think, and I think this is what actually I almost look at it as not even just a marketing and sales conversation, but I feel as if this has been a good opportunity over the last few months for different departments within an organization to engage with each other where they typically wouldn't, right? Everyone's sort of so kind of focused on their day-to-day goals and what they do. you know, each and every day. Whereas I feel as if that's now, you know, there's been a great opportunity, right, to engage with your customer service teams, engage with marketing, engage with sales, you know, really kind of get to grips with what else is going on in the organization. These results are really interesting. Again, I'll share that. So look, I think happily from our perspective, I feel, you know, people do value sales, marketing, alignment, but, you know, what's more interesting is that they, you know, they definitely value it today, you know, even if they didn't perhaps previously. And again, I think that's really interesting. I think in the world of kind of digital sales specifically, you know, it's more often than not, it's your marketing teams who are, you know, who are the ones who are tasked with, you know, updating the company's website, maybe working on sales proposal templates, maybe working on all of these different things that give, you know, sales the, you know, the kind of tools and, you know, to kind of go out there and sell. But if you've got more alignment between these two departments now, then, you know, all the data that's out there everywhere, you know, if you Google sales and marketing alignment, you'll see the impact of that, where companies are really truly aligned, and the results are always positive. You never get a negative response. So I think that's really interesting.
I wonder. I mean, perhaps obviously it might be interesting to understand the next time, as much as they obviously value and it's important. I think a good question possibly would be, is it actually happening? So was it happening in the past? And is it happening now? And I think those results will be probably different as well, because I think what we also see, you know, what we hear, obviously, you know, with meetings we have, is that ultimately, yes, it will be nice to have an alignment, but it just doesn't happen. So I think sometimes there's a desire for this to happen, and you know, a lot of the times in large multinational companies, it's just not practically implemented. I mean, I had, I think last week was my third discussion, kind of pre-Eid, that was, you guys have some marketing automation in place. Yeah, we do, but that's in our global office. It doesn't work here locally, which is astounding. But you know, it's even in larger organizations, they may have all of the pieces to the puzzle, but they're just not, you know, they're just not placed right. Yeah.
No, I agree, Andrew. I think, look, let's turn attention on what we've been doing. I think, because I think, you know, obviously a lot of people want to perhaps know what local businesses has been doing. You know, we're not obviously a large company by any means, but, you know, I feel as if it's important to kind of share some of the things that we've learned. You know, some of our processes, what's changed, what hasn't. You know, and I think, you know, do you want to kind of take the lead from that?
Yeah. I think I can kick off. So I think from a sales process perspective, I think we you know, I'd say that we had a good, robust sales process in place, but everything can improve. So I think first and foremost, the one thing that obviously working remotely has done is that it's almost first and foremost timed in daily sales meeting. So previously, obviously, when we're all in the office, you catch each other. We would have a weekly sales meeting, but we didn't see the necessity for a daily sales meeting. Obviously, now we want to know what's happening, what's coming in, what's in the funnel, what are the conversations you've had. So I think first and foremost, that daily sales meetup, again on Zoom, has been highly valuable, because as much as we have a CRM in place and we have obviously the ability to track a lot of different things, I think that's definitely you know, helped energize everyone out there in the team. And you also hear obviously objections, you understand what's happening in the market, you hear some positive news, you hear wins, you know, and some of these. So I think that's you know, been powerful. I think also the ability to allow your potential prospects and customers to communicate with you as and when they wish, I think that's powerful. So every single point of communication with the sales, we allow the opportunity to book a time. So book a meeting, and we're obviously doing that through Google Calendar and Zoom. So there's a beautiful native integration. For those of you who aren't using Google, there's a nice integration to Office 365 as well. So there's a great way to you know, communicate with prospects and customers. I think the way we've been communicating through video, so we've been using Vidyard to send video messages to people, but you can use 23 and a whole bunch of other different platforms as well. That kind of personable approach, where there's a video, explaining, in some circumstances, explaining a proposal. So it may just be a follow-up to the meeting. Hey, listen, thanks very much. It was great seeing you. Have a look at our proposal. We're going to go through this, 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 and this. I think so. That element of communication has been a positive step as well. So we've had, Vidyard, honestly, for the best part of 2 years. I've spoken about it for the best part of 2 years, how wonderful it is, and never actually practically implemented it until now. So I think we're seeing nice uptake on that as well. And then also just the tools that we're using from, tracking mechanisms. So obviously we do have HubSpot as a CRM, so we can understand if prospects are coming back to the site, if they're opening emails, and if they're looking at, proposals through PandaDoc. So I think this is valuable at this time, because you want to be able to focus on the individuals that are engaged, and not necessarily actually just filling time, right? Sure. Because we've already established people have time. I mean, I think one of the things, and I think this, Amit, from your perspective, one of the things that obviously right at the very beginning is you looked at everything that we had from a communications perspective and said, okay, we need to change some things here. So, I mean, do you want to kind of talk about how we changed some of that and some of the data?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what we did first and foremost, we kind of realized that things were going to have to change. And we've been, I'd say we've been very kind of digital sales focused anyway. So up until a prospect is really qualified, do we actually meet them, right? So we're not in the habit of meeting everyone that sends us an inquiry, and we were using kind of digital tools and data to really kind of drive that. And I don't mind kind of sharing that whole process. So Andrew mentioned that we use HubSpot, but HubSpot for us, from a CRM perspective is great, because every single person that's engaging with our business lives in our CRM. The second part of this is every single interaction that they have, right? So every page that they visit on our website, every email that they open, every ebook they download, every video that they watch, and how much of that video they watch, this data all lives inside of our CRM. So it really kind of gives us an opportunity to lead score, right? So we use all of these different interactions and touch points, give them a different score based on importance for us as a company. And we generally only speak to people once we've seen that they've been invested in the process. And so a lot of what our process is focused around is content. So going back to sort of second week of March, when we realized that this was going to have an impact on our business, what we started to do was look at content and started to see where the gaps in the content were. And so that resulted in us creating a lot more new content in the form of different blog articles, different videos. The second thing that we did is we looked at our existing content. And again, I think one of the things that a lot of companies do when they look at content is they just look at their website content, or maybe they look at blog content. What we did is we also looked at our proposal content. We looked at different interactions, different automations, all of these different things that were kind of, our communication channels, right? We looked at all of these and said, okay, here's where the potential weakness is. Here's where we need to get better. And then we mapped all of that into, I'd say, a single approach. And I think where that single approach really comes into play is now all of our, I'd say almost our entire sales processes is online, right? From identifying different prospects, sourcing the data to target those prospects, the prospects that fill out forms, who live inside of our CRM, how we send proposals. I mean, you mentioned PandaDoc earlier. Again, all of our proposals go out in PandaDoc. So we not only get to see who's opened the proposal, but we get to see how much time they've spent on each page. And again, that kind of leads into our sort of qualification criteria. And then it's only at that point where we really feel as if, okay, this is someone who's really is invested. I'd say all of the content that we've got on our website is digital currency, right? So how much kind of time is somebody kind of investing in our content, right? Because if they're investing time in our content, if they're educating themselves, then there's a good chance that we're going to be on the same page. We're going to be aligned from a client and sort of, provider perspective. And that allows us, I think, to build better relationships. And I feel what you said there was interesting as well about Vidyard. So, you know, I'm not sure if Andrew made that clear, but, you know, instead of, again, typing out emails nowadays, we're sending video emails. And video emails have been things that have been around for a while, but again, very few people are using these effectively. And it's always much easier to read an email, to watch a short video than to read a, you know, 10-paragraph email where you're trying to explain something. So I think all of these tools really kind of come into play. The meeting scheduler for me has been wonderful. So we use again through HubSpot. You know, we're, like Andrew said earlier, we're not trying to force people into an hour-long meeting. We give them an option. Do you want a 15-minute chat, a 30-minute chat, or perhaps an hour meeting? And they can choose. They can see what times we're available. And again, I think that really kind of helps, makes the whole process so much more efficient. We're not going backwards and forwards trying to find a time slot. I mean, you know, in 2020, it's nuts, but we're still doing that. You know, so this kind of simplifies that whole process and just really kind of gets us, I'd say, focusing on selling, right?
Exactly.
And in terms of productivity, sorry, mate, just one question. And on a productivity perspective, you know, how many more meetings are you having each day compared to previously?
Oh yeah, no, it's double and treble in some cases. I mean, I think it's, but I think what you touched upon there is some of the detailed stuff. So even small things like updating, you know, your footer in your email. You know, we did that kind of week one. We had a blog link to, you know, how you can obviously, you know, look at trying to get over some of the challenges that COVID was doing, you know, week one, week two. We linked that back to a blog, and we're tracking that as well. So I think, as well as, you know, the great thing about having everything integrated does allow us to track everything and see the effectiveness of it. So, you know, what's better? Is it better to kind of put in a link here? How many people are watching the videos? I mean, I've been pleasantly surprised that people do watch the videos, because we get that obviously percentage watch. So I think that's quite nice to see that. And then, I think just kind of looking at your own channels as well. So even from a personal perspective, we mentioned at the beginning, it looks like people have been using LinkedIn as part of their network to kind of expand, and all of us have done that. So within the organization, there's been an active encouragement to reach out to your own network and kind of, you know, elevate the content wherever it may be. So I think that's obviously been important, and we've seen that. So, you know, we've closed new business in this time. We're getting still lead generation. We're getting inquiries. But I mean, what I would say is that it's not, you know, a magic formula that we conjured up week one in COVID. There's years of hard work to come to this point, right? It wasn't like we opened a magic box of tricks on kind of day one and said, yeehaw, let's crack on. There was a lot of hard work that was done prior to that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you obsess about process as much as I do when it comes to stuff like this, it helps. But
interestingly enough, so Amit's the guy that after we finish this, and every single session that we've had, he dives in and sees, okay, how long was it watched for, the data, who looked at it, where did it come from? And look, also, again, that data is important. So I think that's helping us, you know, understand as well, because the challenge at the moment is that no one really has the answers. So, you know, even at a government level, that not everyone has the answers. And there's some good questions that have come in, actually, Amit. So we can start to kind of jump into some of these questions, and we'll get back to you guys on this. But I think the thing is that as the only way that we can really kind of to determine where we need to go forward is to look at the data. And by having our data tracked across every single sales process allows us to, you know, understand this. I mean, the fact is that we're getting more meetings booked because at every available opportunity, somebody can book a meeting with any one of us, right? That's out there. That's open. It's on the website. It's something as basic as changing our landline number to one of our mobile numbers on the website straight away allows somebody to communicate with you and realize that you're open. So I think that there's a lot that's been done, you know, but obviously what we've done more importantly is we've looked at data and said, well, okay, has that worked? This has worked, and it's been quick, because ultimately at the moment no one can afford to sit back for a couple of weeks and really, you know, understand. But what we can do is we can obviously make small adjustments according to the data.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, guys, let's kind of thanks for sending those questions in. So we've got questions in from Rebecca, Raj, Ritika, and a couple of others. So let's tackle these, Andrew. Let's start with Ritika because her question came in a while back. So for a tourism-related business that was just starting up a few months ago, COVID has struck a hefty blow. What would you suggest? Should a business like this invest in marketing now or refrain from it? Andrew?
Go on then.
Look, I think you know, when you're talking about marketing, you've got to kind of really kind of break these down into a couple of different areas. So I think first and foremost, the opportunity ever since COVID started was from an education standpoint. Okay, so you know, the tourism and travel sector has been impacted, you know, just, you know, as bad as any sector has. Right. And obviously people, I think I read somewhere where even airlines are predicting that even if they open up flights, then perhaps it will be until, you know, it won't be until December that people are comfortable flying. Right. So if we kind of take all of this in mind, I think if you're a startup within this sector, the opportunity that you've had and still do have is in that education space. So, you know, you've got two options when something like this happens. The first is that you just pull back all activity and say, right, we're not going to maybe invest too much time or money in marketing activities. The other way is to kind of just go head first and really kind of dive in. And so what I would perhaps suggest is think about content, right? So, you know, if you're a startup and you don't maybe have, you know, a lot of kind of startup capital for marketing, what content can you create in the form of, again, videos, blog articles, ebooks, where you can kind of help, you know, not just travelers, right, but people that you're going to be perhaps doing business with, whether it's, you know, helping hotels, whether it's helping, you know, tour operators, whatever that kind of looks like. You know, what information can you share, you know, as an expert in the industry that starts to kind of build trust in your brand and what you do, and also builds credibility in what you're saying. You know, because I think if you do that, your brand visibility is going to increase. Be aggressive. So do this every few days at the least. We've been doing the same thing from our kind of marketing perspective as well. But I think it's really kind of helped people to really kind of understand our viewpoints, where we come from. Even things like this webinar, you know, perhaps, you know, tap into your audience and create your own kind of webinar series, you know, where again, you're focused on travel and tourism. What I do know right now is there's a lot of hotel GMs, a lot of, you know, tour operators who are probably sitting there hoping, you know, for some sort of miracle exposure, you know, where, you know, someone starts talking about their properties. So, or their businesses. So again, you've got an opportunity to kind of tap into your network, invite people to these kinds of shows. Collaborative blog articles are great. Again, we've done many of these, which have been fantastic. And kind of try to leverage your network and other people's networks as much as possible.
I think that's rock solid. I mean, it's I think also there will be, as much as there's going to be individuals that might not want to travel, there's 100% people now looking actually where I need to go on holiday. I need to get out. I need to, you know, go and experience something different, and that is globally. So I think, you know, the thing that has obviously locked all of us together globally is 4 walls. We've all been in 4 walls. So what I would say is that from the, obviously you know, the tourism related business, you could be anything essentially, but if it's a state related to tourists, you know, you're going to see a spike. We've already started to see the Chinese market, you know, making bookings, right? So they're making bookings right now. So some of the countries that have kind of come through the other side of this, they're already looking to travel. They're already looking to explore new places. So I think at the moment, that moment of discovery or inspiration, it's important that you're visible, you know, because there's a lot of other companies that have had to go to ground because possibly they were so visible before and investing heavily that they've had to shut up shop effectively. So there is a real opportunity as a startup with hopefully, I mean, low overheads, low expenditure as far as, you know, perhaps staff and this kind of thing. You've got an opportunity to be visible. So 100%, yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Let's go to the next question, Andrew. So questions from Rebecca. So there are a lot of jobs being advertised now where lead gen is a crucial part of the role. So sales and marketing need to be working together. So we touched on that. What are the top
Yeah.
3 ways to generate leads for a business without using a marketing automation tool like HubSpot?
Nice one. That's great. So I take it, could you just stop talking? That's mine.
I think it's short. I'm happy to tackle this. So first and foremost, nice to hear from you, Rebecca.
Yeah.
So look, I think a lot of the same principles apply as what I just suggested for Ritika there, from a kind of tourism and sort of marketing and brand building perspective there.
Yeah.
If your brand's not visible, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to generate leads. So you've got to think about brand visibility. So if you don't have the budget or a tool for something like HubSpot, you've got to start to think outside of the box. Think about where you can publish content. So whether that's on social media platforms, whether that's on your website, search engines, people they love fresh content, right? So the more aggressive you are in kind of creating new content, it works. The other thing is there's a lot of other tools that aren't maybe as cohesive or integrated as HubSpot. But there's a lot of kind of cheap tools that are out there which have either freemium models or $10 a month models. So right, build landing pages, for example. Yeah,
I was going to say, like, look at things like ClickFunnels, look at things like Zoho, Freshworks. Yeah. I mean, some of these, they're like, you're talking $8 a month in some of these, platforms. So I think the thing is, there's also a difference between the kind of automation piece and lead gen, right?
Right. And so that's, I think that's the point. So, if it's just about generating leads, then perhaps you don't need too much more than some social media accounts, maybe a Google account, and a landing page, right? Because essentially what you can start to do is, build very sort of simple and not complex lead generation tools, right? The only thing I would suggest though, Rebecca, is if you're looking at, looking at sort of implementing any kind of lead gen strategy right now, it's got to be around content again. So, you've got to give some value back to that person who you're trying to engage with. Don't just say, hey, we're the best in the world at this, fill out this form and talk to us. Give something of value back, right? So, whether it's a simple brochure that's been turned into a PDF, whether it's a kind of e-guide which says, hey, this is how this industry has been affected by COVID, download our thoughts right now. Just simple things like that. As long as you've got content as your kind of attractive sort of piece, it won't be too difficult for you to kind of, get that out to the right audience and to start generating leads. And the last thing is that what a lot of people overlook at this time is their own email databases. What data have you got internally? If everyone's saying, look, we've got data, but it's sitting on Excel sheets, get all of those Excel sheets, put all of that data together, and start to work out what you can use and what you can't use, right? I mean, obviously consider things like GDPR in that process, but really start to use that data, because emails are still so cost effective and massively impactful. Yeah, so
I think you definitely touched upon something there that actually gets overlooked quite a lot, Amit, and that is, and we saw it at the beginning as far as how you're generating leads, but your existing customer base. I was only speaking to a dental clinic a couple of days ago, and I need new patients. I need this. I was like, okay, cool. How many patients you got in your database? Oh, 2,500. Okay, how many of those are active? Oh, a couple of hundred. Right. So have you communicated to those people? No. Well, what have you got? Oh, I've only got their phone number. No problem. Let's send them an SMS. Let's WhatsApp them. Let's, you've hit the chord right there, Amit. I think you're not only just about generating new inquiries, but also re-engaging conversations with existing customers and potentially old customers, right? Because whoever you've worked with in the past and, for whatever reason you parted ways, they may be engaged now with an organization that actually cannot service them anymore. Yeah. So this is an opportunity to reach out to those individuals as well, right? And tackle some of those.
Absolutely. And Rebecca's just commented on your beard in her thank you message. So another one.
Amazing. Yeah.
So I think we should just rename the show. This next question is for you, Andrew. So this next
it's about my beard.
It's not about your beard. So this question comes from Raj, and you'll see why I've left this for you. So what are your general tips for social media success?
Okay. All right. Social media success. I think it's important to understand that from a social perspective, it's really just about kind of eyeballs, right? So how many people are going to be seeing your content? So first and foremost, realize the fact that if you look at, let's say, the traditional socials like your Facebooks, your Instagram, your Twitter, your LinkedIn, now obviously a bit more Snap and TikTok. A lot of these channels, and I'll talk about TikTok in a minute, a lot of these channels, it's difficult to get organic reach. So even if you post something to Facebook and you've got a strong following, or you post something to Instagram, doesn't necessarily mean people are going to engage with it or even see it. So I think the thing is that if you look at, first of all, the key to good quality social is to have good quality content. So if you are posting consistently good quality content, some of that should pull through, but also focus your energies in one or two areas. So not necessarily spread yourself a bit too thin. If you feel your audience, it might be, if you're looking at like a restaurant or something like that, you feel your audience is in an Instagram, talk to them on Instagram, communicate with them on there, focus your efforts. As far as organic at the moment, LinkedIn is giving tremendous organic reach. And we've been doing our own studies as far as frequency of posts, how often. There definitely is a correlation between providing good quality content, imagery, videos, and the frequency of kind of posting. So I think that is also important to look at. So, quality, frequency, and adding value. As Amit's mentioned, they're just talking about the content you're providing. When you're communicating this content across your social channels, it has to mean something. There has to be some value behind it. Don't post for posting's sake, as it were.
Sure.
When it comes to TikTok, this is obviously brand new, and honestly, the chance to go massive on that platform is huge. Because the algorithm is insane. So potentially on there, you can just spark and get these incredible views and then go down to zero the next day. TikTok is one of those new platforms that obviously, businesses, brands are exploring at the moment. So it's too early to say. But I'd say it depends what social media success, looks like. Is it brand elevation? Is it brand awareness? Or is it actually generating business? If it's generating business, you need to look at more allocating some budget for some advertising opportunities, because with the advertising, you can then start to select the audience that you want to target. So let's say, for example, you're a place for like a restaurant, you can target the geographical area on social media. If you're a business and you want to target specific business individuals, you can do that on LinkedIn. So, just if you are looking at from a lead gen perspective, you may want to look at allocating a small amount of your budget towards that.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. We've got one more question that's coming from Abhishek, and this is very much focused on the education sector. So Abhishek's question is, where demand is on hold and waiting for government notifications on the opening of schools, how do we see the impact of this in offers, and what strategies should schools sort of create to build relationships? I'm happy to take this on, Andrew, but Abhishek, thanks for your question. The challenge right now for schools, and I'd also say the same challenge exists for parents, is uncertainty. Okay, and this isn't, I'd say, just a Dubai-centric problem here. I think anywhere where you've got sort of private school education in particular, parents are obviously trying to figure out what's going on. I think in a place as transient as Dubai, where people come and go, they move here for a few years, circumstances change, they move back. Uncertainty, basically means that people will not take actions, in the same way that they typically would. So, if we keep hearing stories of, all of these, there's about 500,000 people apparently ready to leave the UAE at the moment who are on waiting lists. These are significant numbers, and I feel as if, we're still only in May, right? We're still not at that peak point of perhaps where this is going to be. So I'd say in the void of very clear government announcements that from September every kid will be back at school, parents are just going to make delays in making decisions, So, and I feel as if that's going to be the case. So, what can schools do? I think is the main part of your question. So, if people are going to be delaying making these decisions, how is it that schools can kind of keep parents engaged? And we've kind of discussed this obviously internally, but I feel as if, one of the key things to do is to really kind of put yourself out there. Again, we've spoken about content. We've spoken about, recording regular videos. This is a time not to engage with your existing students. It is that, but you've also got to be engaging with kind of wider audiences. I think there's a real opportunity for schools, especially in the UAE, because that's what we see right now. That's what we've got exposure to. But there's a real opportunity for schools to really kind of stand out from the crowd. And we're not talking about doing, virtual open days and things like that. That's what everyone's doing. But I'm talking about maybe slightly further up the funnel, right? So virtual open day at the moment only really replaces a normal open day, right? You're still some way down the funnel and you're interested in going to that school. And so you want to kind of learn more and see some facilities.
Yeah.
Where I see the real opportunity, where I'm seeing very few people take advantage of this, if any, is really kind of top of funnel. Which school, which principal is out there doing a webinar every week, right? Not just something, again, focused around a PowerPoint presentation, but where the principal was standing in front of an audience, albeit a virtual audience, and taking questions on like what we're doing now, right? Because what parents do have right now is a whole load of questions that aren't being answered. And I know, and I understand from a school perspective that those answers are going to, you're relying on the authorities to give you those answers. But there's a massive opportunity for businesses, which schools are, to really kind of say, actually, do you know what? We're going to take these questions on. We're going to answer them to the best of our ability. If we don't know the answer, we'll say we don't know the answer. But if parents, whether they're existing students or prospective students, if they've got these questions, we need to give them answers. And I think anyone who really kind of embraces that and really kind of reaches and engages that audience are going to have a phenomenal top of funnel that they can work with as soon as things open up and there's more clarity in the situation. So I kind of feel quite passionate about this sector. Obviously, I've got a business within this sector as well. But this is absolutely, for me, the key that's missing right now. I mean, what about from your perspective, Andrew?
No, I'd agree. I mean, I think that this is the time of uncertainty, and this is the time where people are starting to ask questions. So parents are starting to say, well, what if I do this, or what if I do that, or what if I, there's a lot of what ifs, and I think that if as a school you can become the authority in this space and focus on trying to answer some of these questions and differentiate yourself from the rest, which obviously, at the moment there's a very kind of one standard message from the educational side of things. I think that if you differentiate yourself and start to add a human element, like you said, have the principal, have the dean, have teachers, adding what really schools are about. I think the thing is that it's easy to forget, or it seems as though it's becoming easy to forget what value those schools provided to parents and students. So I think re-engaging with them at that personal level and showing them this is actually what it means to be, an educational establishment, and how much you care about, the pupils and the parents alike, and the well-being and how you're going to be tackling this. I think that puts you in an authoritative position. So then ultimately, when the decision does come down from the top, as far as this is going to happen, I think at that point, then you're seated quite well, right? You've got a nice place at the table. I think it's kind of, cool.
I was going to say there's a lot of friends of mine at the moment who are talking about potential homeschooling next year, right? So that kind of added, that adds more sort of complications to the mix here, right? Because it's not just about are the kids going to go back to school or not. It now turns into, well, should I homeschool them anyway? Because I'm not sure if it's safe for them to go back. But again, I think you're absolutely right. You said it perfectly there. Your message has to be different from everyone else. And everyone else at the moment is still trying to enroll students, right? Their focus is, register now,
it's a bit like
enroll
this, right?
now. Yeah, I mean, it's one single kind of uniform message, but from every school. So if you start to kind of differentiate yourself from that, what will happen is you'll just end up with more people in your funnel, because at the moment, very few people are engaging with that sort of content, right? Very few people are saying, okay, great, I'll enroll my kid. Why would they? They don't know if they're going to be here. They don't know if their jobs are secure. Many people are aware that they've got to put deposits down if they register their kids. There's a lot of people who are pretty apprehensive to do that. So but get them in your funnel, right? Start to, start to engage them in a non-sales way, tackle the homeschooling situation head on, right? What are the benefits of homeschooling versus not? I think if you start to kind of create that sort of content, I think you produce something which I think parents will relate to. So I think there's lots of opportunities. I wish
be different. I think
other educational institutes,
like you said, Amit, be different is actually a bit of a mantra that we've been preaching, because the thing is, it's working for organizations that are being different. I think that, and you're standing out from X, that is helping business. I think that the concern or the fear potentially is that when we kind of get back into some sense of normality, that we kind of go back to our old ways. And I think that can't happen. I think if you're being different, you're kind of exploring those new spaces. You need to continue that. It kind of just brings me on to this from Sydney. He's asked just another question here, Amit. He's asked if you can talk about the impact of the entertainment sector with sales and what to expect in the upcoming days. And I just wanted to touch on that quickly before I kind of ask you about this as well. But I think that this ties in with the schools and the children, because I think at the moment, if you have children under the age of 12, there's relatively little impact on them opening things up. As far as malls and restaurants, and because at the moment we're still hearing that those individuals cannot be entertained, right? In certain entertaining establishments. So even if that is cinemas, restaurants, bars, theme parks, all these kinds of things. So I think it's going to be interesting what actually opens up and how it opens up. But I think that whatever these guys have been doing that's been different and great in the last few months, I think they need to continue with that. So some of the restaurants have been doing live broadcasts for musical acts, so you can sit at home and enjoy their food and watch music. Other organizations have been doing deliveries. I think they should try to almost cater for two different audiences. So the audience that is going to run out the door day one, I want to get out, I want to go and see people, but they also need to still communicate with that audience that's perhaps a little nervous, or perhaps they have someone in the family that is still in that group that is obviously on the danger list, as it were, or the fragile list. So I think that there may be a kind of yeehaw, we're open, here we go, let's do this, let's do how we did before, and I feel like that can't happen. You need to almost communicate to both audiences. What do you think?
I agree with you. I think that's a really good point. I think what's also interesting is, and I saw it on your newsfeed on LinkedIn, funny enough, last night, and I think you commented on Media One's post. So, yes. Right, so obviously Mark Lee's a good friend of mine, but he, what they've done is they've created a video, which was not just saying, hey, we're open, but it's, they've almost done a bit of a kind of Ghostbusters kind of remake, right? Yeah. Where they've got their guys kind of dressed up in Ghostbuster outfits, going around sort of sanitizing the hotel. And again, I think what they did was quite nice, because it's a different slant on saying, hey, we're just open. They're tackling the biggest concern that people have got head on, which is it going to be safe? Obviously the one thing they can't, and what nobody can account for is who has got it and who hasn't potentially. But the fact that they're taking all precautions necessary, but they're kind of showing us that in a kind of fun, engaging, and entertaining way, I think gives people more confidence, right? And I think that's being different, standing out, I think is really kind of valuable in that.
Yeah, humanizing the brand has always been important, but I mean now so more than ever. I mean, I think that there is, because we collectively as a human race have kind of hit this wall, we're all trying to climb it together. So I think when we start to get back to business, there is more of an openness associated to interacting with brands and remembering, good times that you had before, and kind of exploring new things as well. So this kind of be different is crucial. I think we should our next webinar should be called Be Different.
I think it should be. I think on that note, Andrew, I think we've taken up far too much time with everyone so far. So this show, just for those of you who are still watching, I mean, the majority of you are. This was supposed to be about 30 to 40 minutes.
30 minutes.
We've gone on for about 70 minutes right now. But guys, I think it's been a great show. Thank you for everyone who's participated. Thanks for your kind of survey inputs. Thanks for all your questions. And I've actually really enjoyed this. I think it's a topic that, is just going to kind of keep evolving, right, moving forward, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, we've still got a few questions coming in there, guys. Please send us an email. I mean, you can catch me and Amit on LinkedIn, or you can catch us through email or Digital Nexa. I mean, go and check us out. Obviously, we're always happy to jump on and have a conversation. And as we've already established, it's pretty easy to book some time with us, right? So please feel free to do so.
Brilliant.
Good stuff.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day, guys. All right, take care.
Cheers. See you later. Bye, everyone. See you then.